So you have some idea now of what a Python variable is, and then when we put data inside of it, it is a type of data. It is a number, more specifically an integer or a float. It is a string, right? Some kind of English, and then it is a Boolean, right? Those are the three that we know about at the moment. And I'm gonna go ahead and do another Command A, Command slash, just comment everything out. So we're kind of starting fresh here. It's important to remember that if I make a variable here called cookie count, and we set it to 12 like we did a little bit earlier, this is a number. And we tested that out up here. We had our integer data type, and we checked, and it was an int. Intermingling data types with each other is very dangerous. Usually it won't work. As a for instance, let's say we wanted to do this. We wanted to do 12 plus cookies, okay? Python is not going to be okay with that. That doesn't mean anything. You can't add the number 12 and the word cookies together. So I'm going to open up the terminal over here. And if you haven't seen me do this before, this is a really handy way to go back and forth between the terminal, and then this maximizes it. But if I run Python against our Python basics, sure enough, it's complaining right here, right? Line 57. What are you doing? This is an unsupported operand type. The plus sign is the operand. You can't add an integer and a string together. That makes no sense. Now, the funny thing is, in JavaScript and in Ruby, other languages actually will let you do that. It can be really convenient sometimes, but it's actually pretty dangerous for reasons that you'll understand, in the future. So I'm going to comment this out. If we made another variable, we'll call it is daytime. Okay, and I'm going to set that to true. Right, so what data type is this? This is a Boolean. Right, we might use this in our app to find out, right, is it daytime or nighttime? We will print something off, or we'll ask for something based on that. Okay, if we take is daytime and we tried to add 3 to it, and let's put nonsense, that's the variable name here, right, line 59 here, we'll run it again, and it's okay with that. Well, let's go see what actually happened. Let's print off nonsense, and let's see what it actually is here. So I'm going to save that, run it again. We get the number 4. Okay? There's a reason for this, and it's very important. The Boolean true is the same thing. I mentioned this before. True equals 1 and false equals 0. So there are some weird things in Python, just like JavaScript. If we do the same thing here, let's do is nighttime. We'll put false in there, and then we'll do nonsense 2, and we'll do is nighttime plus 3, and then we'll print off nonsense 2. Okay, so doing exactly the same thing here. We got this one where we're doing true, and then we got this one where we're doing false. Let's save that. Let's come back over, and let's run it again. We get 4 and we get 3. Okay, so that's, again, something important to know going forward. The Boolean is an incredibly useful data type. But it is the same thing, right? True is the same thing as the number 1, and false is the same thing as that number 0. Remember that transistor that I drew where electricity comes down and goes one way or the other? 0 or 1, false, true, off, on. That's what's happening here. Okay? So there are some occasions where you can intermingle, but it's always dangerous to do that. Okay? What we're gonna move forward with here is I want to show you how collecting input works, because so far everything we've done is hard coded. Like is daytime plus 3. We define is daytime right here as true, and then we add 3 to it. That's not dynamic. There's no interaction. There's no reason that we need a programming language to do any of this. What would be really useful is if, say, we could ask the user for their name, and then we could respond to them throughout the program and say, hey, Rob, hey, Akash, hey, Bill. Okay, and the way that we do that, we can set a variable called name equal to input open close like that. And I'll make a comment above it here. Input open close will pause or block the program until the user enters something. So usually you need to give the user an indication that, hey, we are waiting for something, but let's see what happens here. Let's print name, okay? Now normally, if we come back over to the terminal here, it goes through the whole program and then it's done, right? It printed off 4, it printed off 3, and then it got us back to the beginning. With this, it's going to pause or block the program. It won't be able to finish until we enter something here, and then it will keep going. Okay, so let's clear this out. Let's run our program again. Okay, it's sitting here, right? It's waiting for something, and I'm going to put in here, tacos are tasty, and hit enter, and it prints off what I entered in. Okay, we will use this a lot in the course because we're going to want to collect information from the user. Like I said, we want their name. Something that we can do is just like in print, we have these parentheses, we can hand the input command something. We can pass it some text, and let's put in here, what is your name, ? And save it. Okay, let's come over and let's run it again. This is far more useful, right? Instead of just a blank cursor waiting, now it actually gives us some text so the user knows what we're asking. And if I put in here Rob, now it prints out my variable, okay? We go a little bit further. What can be really nice here is maybe at the end you put like something like that and then a space. And then when we print the name here, if you have two strings, you can do this. We can do your welcome, comma, and then space. We put the plus sign here and then we say name. Okay, let's go see what happens here. So let's clear this out. Okay, what is your name? There's our two arrows. My name this time is going to be William, and I hit enter. Okay, it says welcome William. Well, what we did here, this, and I'll put a note here, the plus sign is not a plus sign. It is called concatenate in programming. Okay? Concatenation, let's make that note too. Concatenation is when you stick two strings together. So we took, this is a string, and input always comes in as a string, so we are not adding, we are simply smashing these two strings together. And that is what we're seeing here. We've got welcome, space, William. It did just that. And let me put that up above here for input. Input is always a string data type. It's going to get us later on. You're going to forget this, and I'm going to remind you of it because this is going to be one that's going to air out a little bit later on. Okay? But we now have the ability to collect some data from the user, and we can start making decisions with it. Okay? That's a good stopping point for this video. We got a little bit more insight on how data types interact with each other, what we can and can't do, and then we now have the ability to ask the user for input, which will give us a lot more leverage going forward.